So we're here at NEARcon, and like we wanted to just look around and see like how amazing this has been, right? Like
it's been amazing.
And this makes me think of one thing: all these projects, a wave of projects. What follows projects? Users. Now, from your point of view, what is like the ideal way you want users to come into the Near blockchain ecosystem and then learn about it? Like, what is sort of your ideal? Let's call it a user journey.
Yeah. I mean, I think it always starts with some application, right? Because like, if you think of it as a user, you probably don't care as much about like underlying infrastructure. And so you want to start with a Sweatcoin, with some experience, and then through that you're like, oh shit, this is interesting. You figure out that actually like, oh, I can see my stuff there, and I can use it there, right? So like you have things like Niche, which is a community. You have NFTs, but then these NFTs show up in your wallet, which you can use, for example, to get into a event or get a ticket or something, right? Like, so you kind of have this like fluidity of motion, and that's what Web3 is.
Yeah.
This compatibility, and so I think that's why it's exciting to see applications that are truly like targeting, amazing user experience, right? Like smooth onboarding. You don't need to think about blockchain, and so even with this, I was talking about the wallet stuff. Like, how do we make it even more? Like, how do we innovate on this idea that you need to have a wallet before you can start using apps?
Yeah.
Like that's what I want to get to. That's why we're doing a bunch of things on under the hood, right? Like meta transactions and kind of making sure you like wallet selectors work indirectly in the app, so you don't need to think about like, ideally wallet selector doesn't even be a wallet selector. It's like you create an account, you start using it, and then you can get it into another wallet and kind of manage it there. So like, how do we make the app first touch point and then kind of expand users like flexibility through the ecosystem?
Awesome, man. Yeah, people like you and your team think about the blockchain so users don't have to.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
So thinking of onboarding, right? So Sweat just onboarded 13 million new wallets. And hearing an AMA with you and Oleg a little while back, he talked about going to all the different blockchains and not really feeling comfortable until he met with you, and the Near Foundation. What did you guys sell him on that made them so excited to actually go on Near?
So there are a few things. One was we had a very aligned vision, right? They're very like, hey, it's all about the users. It's about onboarding them in the smoothest way, right? That was like the main thing. I don't think anyone else in this space is actually putting any attention on that, right? Like, I mean, people talk about like, hey, let's onboard users, but they don't make any decisions like actual, like, hey, we're gonna simplify this, we're gonna create this to make it simpler. That's number one. Number two is literally the scale they are operating with. Like, they've actually tried other blockchain, they do not scale to that, right? We actually, like, at the call, I made a smart contract for him and loaded up with their load and showed that it actually works. Right? It wasn't like, hey, you need like a bunch of infrastructure, side chains, or whatever. Right. It's like it literally works right now, and it, and we just continue optimizing, making stuff better, right? And then third is like I showed him kind of our like commitment to, like, as an ecosystem and specifically as core team, like that works on protocol, to continue innovating on this, right? Like, the reality is probably some stuff will not work. Like, these technologies are not perfect, but Near is all about kind of continuous innovation, in iteration. And so for me, that commitment is all about like, shipping, kind of like, we're shipping new sharding phase, like we continue doing that. They're gonna get their own shard as things are expanding. Like, this kind of stuff is like how you get like truly, the scalability, but also like you continue delivering on what people expect.
Did you monitor the token drop yesterday, and how did that go?
I looked a little bit. I saw some people were like tweeting about like the chunk capacities and stuff like this. Yeah, I mean it seemed it was good. There was like few hiccups here and there, but like overall it went really well.
Yeah, no, that's exciting.
Well, yeah, and we're talking about like pushing technology and like decentralization in the Chuck Validator. So Joe has been deep in Stake Wars for Chuck Validator, so we've been like really into it. So, but here's what, you might have to help me with this question because like Joe's a hardcore tech dev. But so what's interesting is this Chuck Validator is kind of turning into projects will want to become chunk validators, not only to help support the chain, but also maybe create this ecosystem of like chunk validators where projects are part of them.
Yeah.
Is that by design, or has that just been like a cool thing that's sort of come out of this chunk validator?
That was a hope, I would say.
Really?
Like, I mean,
okay.
yeah. So my honest expectation is the projects are the most committed, like projects, ecosystem members, like are the most committed members, right? Like yes, we have professional validators and they provide a lot of value, but the projects are the ones who are committed, who are continuing delivering, and I really want to align the validator incentives and the project incentives in one. And that's why somebody in community built a stake farm, right, that Aurora's using, and that's actually that was the design for specifically these cases where you have a project that can attract delegation through distributing its own token, and then in turn it's almost like, in a way it's an airdrop. That's what it is, right? But it's like an airdrop that aligns everyone's incentives around the validation of network security and also actually commitment, right? And so I think that's important for the ecosystem to continue growing, that we get more and more of this truly kind of committed folks that are working in the ecosystem.
I'm so glad to hear that, because it's been happening. All the projects we talk to, it just makes so much sense, and since it's infinitely scalable,
well,
let's say,
within the limits of speed of light.
I say that word as a non-dev. I'm like infinite, scalable, blockchain.
I mean, there's speed of light. There's few limitations that we need to deal around in the universe, but otherwise it's good.
Yeah, break the physics of speed of light. It can scale. But that means that as projects scale and time scales, it just could be this universe of chunk validators and validators that are all projects up.
So there always was a design that as network scales, meaning there's more shit going on, there's more validators needed. More validators needed, there's more opportunity for everyone to participate. That was kind of the design of Nightshade in a way. It's hey, how do we get more folks in as it grows, right? Because otherwise, if it doesn't grow, there's actually no, it's match the demand and supply in a way.
Dude, I can't wait for the VR tour of a universe of the chunk validators where people just go through and go to
You should talk with NEARverse. They should build this out.
Yeah, so staying on the chunk validators and decentralization, how do you actually see this as NEAR starts to scale, and hopefully over the next 5 to 10 years, and hopefully now we get to a point of needing maybe 10,000 chunk validators. Is that something where the economics still hold true to that?
So this is the idea, is as the scaling should be matched by the demand. If you have 10,000 chunk validators, that means you need 100 shards or 200 shards, right? Which means you have at least 100,000, 200,000 transactions per second happening. Otherwise, why do you have that? And so that's the idea, is if you have 100,000 transactions per second, that's at the current prices something I don't know, 10,000 NEAR per second has been burned. So there's a lot of economics that comes in with that.
Right.
Yeah.
So is there any thoughts to eventually though change how the contracts work, where the burn mechanism would ever change, or do you feel like it's pretty good where it is long term?
Well, I mean, this is why we're NEAR, we're not here. Right? It's everything, we should challenge everything and consider if it should be changed. That I'm not gonna say what the team invented sitting in San Francisco, figuring out without knowing much.
Perfect, right?
It's perfect, right? So as we get real data, as the community grows, we should challenge this. Somebody should hey, this does not make sense. Let's figure out how to make it better. Sure. I'm all for this. Yeah. This is why we're doing NDC, the governance. So there is a way to make such decisions. Somebody can come in and say, hey, we want to reduce this economics. Boom, protocol working group comes in, says this is good technically. We should have economics working group come in saying this works, this looks good economically. Here's models, here's analytics. And community votes and we implement this. That should be the process as we actually adjust things like that.
Speaking of which, did you know, I know there was a topic not too long ago about changing the gas floor price. Yeah. Was that ever changed or resolved, or is that still?
There is, I think, pull request, but I think they didn't push it through. But again, this is I think it's worth continuing pushing on that. Yeah. I think obviously that changes economics a bit, and so this is where some discussion is worth it, and people had some, but yeah, I think it's worth kind of evaluating that and pushing that.
Absolutely.
And so I'm gonna take it back to you said about community, right? The NDC, we'll be getting to that in a second, but I'm gonna, we're part of that as well. So you've got we're walking through all the projects building. These are OG projects building on NEAR. And I've noticed in the last few months, it's really been a focus of community. Has that been something that you want to keep going forward through the next couple years? Is that like a focus that you're starting to think about as well, as that NEAR's growing, right?
Yeah, so I mean, the reality is like kind of NEAR is not a company, right? Let's be clear, right?
Yeah.
The original company, like, you know, have separated into so many different groups and folks working on different things, and that was, to be clear, that was by design.
It has to be.
We have like we brought the team together with the goal of like, hey, let's build this infra and build cool shit on top of it. That was
building
right.
cool shit. And if you don't have decentralization, what are we doing?
Exactly, yeah. And so now that we have you know dozens and dozens of like kind of, I'm not even talking about like, you know, 800 projects. I'm talking about Proximity and Pagoda and like large kind of entities in the ecosystem that are pushing some important aspects of the kind of the go-to-market, of the growth, of the infrastructure. Mm-hmm. Now we need the kind of collaboration of them, right? Because like obviously, I mean, they're all connected and working together, but we need coordination. We need like, how do we make a decision that is like impacting more than like one of those groups?
Yeah.
And this is where community comes in. It's like processes as well in a community. And so like my belief is we need to have that kind of structured and well done, because that's actually probably the most competitive advantage than anything else. Yeah. Like technology continues evolving, you know, like somebody can come in and rewrite all the code and say, and like prove that this is indeed better. Like somebody can come in and say like, hey, we have a better than Nightshade design. Okay. And we should be able to say like, okay, prove it to us, let's evaluate it and then ship it, right? That should be possible. Yeah. And so it's really important for me that like, you know, there's smarter people out there that can do this. We should be, as a community, as ecosystem, be able to evaluate it and ship it. And so that's why we need to kind of bring this and make it a lot more kind of structured and process oriented to actually be able to make such decisions.
Cool. Yeah. Do we want to start pivoting to
Yeah, do you want to just keep walking? I mean,
walking's going great. How are you feeling?
Is that all right?
Yeah, this feels like how we've been talking to most people at this conference. It's like walking and being like, tell us about your project.
So we'd love to kind of jump in a little bit to the NDC. I know it's a big initiative, but I would say for some people who feel maybe that this is very fast, right? You guys went to mainnet about a year ago. You know, we're really accelerating, really pushing decentralization. Why do you feel it's important to move so fast on decentralization, not just from the protocol level, but from the foundation and community level?
I mean, so these things take time,
yeah.
Right? And it's like the earlier you start, like because like at some point things crystallize, right? Like what you don't want to happen is that the things crystallize in a state where it is like not actually accounting for stakeholders in ecosystem, right? And this is like have happened to many blockchains, to be clear, right? And so, like as I said, for like, you know, if you look at some blockchains maybe that are a few years longer than us, like they have not established that, they have not built that, and it's too late for them. Like their ecosystem is not able to work in that way anymore. And so for me, it's really important to kind of continue driving this forward because, and as I said, like our ecosystem is already decentralized. So it's both from one side, like how do we kind of continue establishing processes because it is decentralized and we need to coordinate this. And then on the other side is like we can, you know, if we try to coordinate it without that, then like it will kind of, like the status quo can kind of persist, and then we did not actually achieve what we wanted, right?
Yeah, I'm so glad to hear that. Like I really like, we go in our podcast, we talk about that a lot. Like I'm glad to hear that, and I've been excited to see the conversation going, the people take, like it's that talk about like the tech is ahead of its time in Web3, and now we're talking about governance maybe, or doubt, like something else ahead of its time. Can you even call it governance? What is it called?
Don't think of, I mean, we can, you know, governance is good, but think of it this way. So there is a protocol with nodes, right? We have validators running hardware. There's, you know, a protocol for communicating. There's rewards. Yeah. This is good, but this is like a, you know, it's a technical level.
Right.
But at the end, the ecosystem is about people. Yep. And so it's about people and organizations. Yeah. And these organizations are also nodes in this ecosystem.
Yeah, totally.
Right? They're doing work, they're contributing to the ecosystem, they're trying to make money as well, right? Like, and so what we need to build now is not the protocol for code, it's a protocol for organizations and people in the ecosystem. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're trying to right now figure out with NDC, kind of what is this protocol and kind of how do you bring up a new node, right?
Yeah.
How do you maybe how do you shut down a node? How do you do all this work? How do you, slash someone if they're misbehaving?
Yeah.
And how do you distribute rewards and kind of allocate resources in this? And so in reality it's kind of just uplifting, because that is, the people is where, the innovation is happening, right? It's coming from their brains. The code, will continue evolving. That's what I'm saying. It's all about evolution. Somebody will invent new stuff. It'll come in. Zero knowledge will replace a bunch of stuff. Like it's gonna just continue happening. And so what we need is this level of kind of innovation on the organizational level.
With this kind of change, I think it's a big mental shift for a lot of people, right? It's just not something that people have really experienced or seen or thought about. So how do you start to incentivize people to still kind of take a leadership role? Because you do need leaders still.
Yeah.
So how do you kind of bridge that gap?
Well, so what we've done in a way, right, we kind of seeded this with having all this like sub organizations, right? We have Proximity, we have Human Guild, we have, that's already there, near Balkans, near China, near Kenya, we and starting more. So there is already leaders who are strong, who are working on ecosystem, who are really bought in and kind of contributing, right? And obviously the projects that are doing this as well. So now, I think that level is kind of, we have the first nodes pretty much running, right? So now we need to establish kind of the communication protocols, and we need to establish kind of alignment, better, there's alignment, but how do we continue this process forward, and especially the most important is how do we upgrade this? Yeah. That's part of the NEAR protocols thing that we did is we made everything upgradable through the governance, some form of governance. If it's your smart contract, you have a DAO governance. If it's a protocol, it's right now validated technical governance. But that upgradability is a really important step because it allows you to continue evolving it. And so, yeah, for me, that's if we establish that process, then we can continue kind of evolve. And that, again, for me, blockchain organization, etc. It's all about, in the Darwin sense, right, evolution. And so it's you need to continue doing that.
Nice. I'm really liking this theme of Web3 is a chance to do things I think better than maybe all constructs we have as people have been made by people, and now it's time to be made by new people. But we can cut that if you want. I'm just I don't want to get too. I'm not going to get too. But okay. So we talked to a lot of projects over the last 8-9 months of doing this. There's one thing every single dev, every single type person says, oh yeah, it's by far the easiest and best to build on. They might be building on other chains as well too, but they're that's just for my job. If I had my choice, it'd just be building on this. So when there's new projects coming on, what are sort of the 3 points, or however many you want, but 3 that you would tell to someone who's coming to build a project that's going to build on here, why they should choose or think about exploring NEAR?
I think there's 2 sides. There's a developer side, and so that's what developers say, right? It's easy to build, meaning you have the choice of languages, right? You have Solidity, you have Rust, and you now have JavaScript.
Oh man, JavaScript blew up on online. People loved it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's so many JavaScript developers. You have the tooling, right? You have CLIs, indexers. You have all of the stuff that you need. You don't need to build your own infra pretty much to get shit done. That's really that's the thing that on many blockchains you're I want to build in game. It's cool. Go build for 6 months a bunch of infra just to start.
Yeah.
So that's that's pretty solid. Obviously there's still a bunch of opportunities to build stuff, but this is and then finally as we're building this go-to-market ecosystem, now you have the kind of expertise and funding for different aspects, right? If you need DeFi, we have Proximity that provides DeFi expertise. You have gaming, well, Human Guild been running 100 entrepreneurs, 100 games, right? Working with them, helping them help each other and stuff like this, right? We just set up an entertainment and sports fund, right? Which will be doing similar thing, connecting to people like Baron Davis and other folks, in the reality, right? And already one project that I've been helping, they're already connected and it's already starting to work, right? Things like that. It's finding the right expertise and right kind of network and market is really important in the space, because a lot of developers come in, they have good ideas, but then they don't know how to get it out. And so that's what really, in a way, this whole organization of nodes is really trying to do, right? It's how do we bridge this expertise and kind of provide it almost as a platform as NEAR protocol as the infrastructure.
The thing I've noticed, so Joe and I were just we were just a little too young for sort of that Web 2 explosion where people were building in their garages and stuff. We came in at the tail end of that. close enough to people we know who did it. This is the first time in my lifetime where I feel like we're back, like everyone we're talking to, it's teams that are like a good idea and leveraging Near and they can build. And it's going to be really exciting to see what that brings out. And you can just feel that wave coming, which is so cool. That was all I was going to say. Just like a comment of like, I'm sure you know that, but like, how cool is that? Like,
I mean, we're like at the precipice, right? Like this is right now is the opportunity to do really cool stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like really everything, you know, can be big.
Like, if you're a developer, you have an idea, and you might not have major funding yet, you can come here and with an idea and some knowledge, build something. And that's like a really rare time to have, and it's super cool.
Yeah, I mean, as a developer, I definitely felt reinvigorated when I found Near. I was like, oh man, like this feels like I can have fun with it again. I'm not just building for corporate or enterprise or anything else. I can now, you know, at my free time, actually build something innovative and interesting. So I think that's really been a nice change, you know, coming into Web3, but also I think what Near says, the tooling that's available to me as a developer has really been huge. But as we wrap up, I just kind of wanted to think about where do you see the foundation now, maybe in a year or two, as the NDC starts to grow and become more solidified?
That's a good question. I mean, so the kind of overall foundation is, you know, foundations are good at some things, but they're not, you know, they're not designed to be the kind of governance body of the blockchain. It's not designed to kind of, so it's almost like a booster, right? It gets you to the orbit,
right,
and then it separates.
Yeah.
And so I think like, I mean, we all will be figuring out like what are the functions that stay with foundation, but like I think the goal is for sure to a lot of functions and a lot of kind of things that people, first of all, people expect a bunch from foundation that they shouldn't. I just want to communicate that. Like if you think, hey, I need to go to foundation to do blah, that's not true. Like, you know, you like there's a whole ecosystem, there's all this nodes, there's all this ecosystem that you can connect to directly and work with. And that's why like NDC, as well as we're going to be building some better discoverability tooling for that to make this really easy, right? So I think that's the main point. Foundation really is just like here to get us to the orbit.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, we'll be figuring out all together how this will be evolving.
Awesome. I mean, this has been a really cool like walk down, like checking the stadium to your NEARcon, and love the idea of a rocket ship like launching and things breaking off, and then eventually you're just like in deep space, decentralized, and it's doing its thing. So.
This was great. I appreciate it, and then looking forward to see what kind of happens next.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and come next year if you haven't been here, and yeah, I mean we'll continue, you know, 10xing every year.
Yeah,
Or faster.
There you go, faster. Yeah. Great.